for the curtains and all in the tabernacle. All right, verses 30 through 35 to the end of the chapter. And it says this: Then Moses said to the sons of Israel, See, the Lord has called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, and of the tribe of Judah. And he has filled him with the Spirit of God, in wisdom and understanding, in knowledge, and in all crafts, to make designs for working in gold and in silver and in bronze, and in cutting of stone for settings, and in the carving of wood, so as to perform in every inventive work. And so here's a little picture showing him working, and here's one too. We'll see in chapter 2 over, we'll see a pretty elaborate description of how the mercy seat was to be made. And so we'll be seeing that. And yet he was the one that would be doing that. Also, another man did too. He also put in his heart to teach both he and Obli, I hope that's the way to say it, the son of Ashamach of the tribe of Dan. So what we have here is that Bezalel, the son of Uri, was able to teach and explain to this other gentleman. These two main men here would be the ones working, and they would also be teaching other men how to do the work too. The verse 35 says, He has filled them with skill to perform every work of the engraver and of a designer and of an embroiderer in blue and purple and in scarlet material and in linen, and of a weaver as performers of every work and makers of design. And here's another little picture I found. This is showing the work being done and putting stuff together. And so in this case, this was supposed to, you can see the thread down here at the bottom. Here, there's some more, and that's some weaving there where they were making. And there's some of the material hanging is what it would be. And these type things would be added and used in the tabernacle. And so that's the end of chapter 35. So what we'll look at next is chapter 36. And let's see here. In chapter 36, we have this. We have the tabernacle. My Bible used the word underwritten, but what it's talking about here is about how Moses called these men and how they were working and doing the job that needed to be done. So in that case, let's read verses 1 through 7, and we're going to let that picture up there. Now, Bezalel and Obadiah and every skillful person in whom the Lord has put skill and understanding to know how to perform all the work in the construction of the sanctuary shall perform in accordance with all that the Lord has commanded. Not only, as I mentioned earlier, not only does men do this work, but the women, they play their part too. And you can see here it says, every skillful person. Again, these were people that had been in Egypt, and for 400 years, the only trade they knew was making bricks. And the women would have had families, would have raised children, would have cooked and provided, did the types of things around the home. And then the men, of course, we have to remember that God's people had actually been turned into slaves by that time, and they were forced to do this. And so we see here that more than just the men did the work. Then Moses called Bezalel and Obadiah, and I think every time I say those words, I'm saying them different, so hang with me. And every skillful person in whom the Lord had put skill, every one whose heart stirred him to come to the work to perform it. So even having a desire to help was what the type of person that God would want to have. And they received from Moses all the contributions which the sons of Israel had brought to perform the work in the construction of the sanctuary, and they still continued bringing to him free will offerings. So that was Moses, picture of Moses talking to these two men, and again, giving them instructions what to do, and then God giving them the ability to do it. And here's a picture showing the people bringing things. Again, we don't know if that's exactly how it looked, but they had the stuff in their possession, and they would bring it. So how would you bring it? Depending on what you had, you may carry it in your arms or hands or whatever it may be, and go from there. But anyway, there's a picture showing that right there. And here is what I tried to do, like in verse 4. It says, and all the skillful men who were performing the work came to do the work that he was going to perform. And they said to Moses, the people, and here's some more, another picture, says this though, but the people are bringing much more than enough for the construction work which the Lord commanded us to perform. So they actually was bringing too much, like right here over, and you may think, well, you can't bring too much. Yes, you can. And what I mean by that is this, is that if you bring too much stuff to someone, that person they bring it to, what are they going to do? What are they going to do with it? They got to put it somewhere. And if you bring so much, you know what could happen? It could get in the way of doing what you're trying to do. And so there was a certain amount of material that needed, thankfully, out of the love that these people had for what God had done for them, no doubt, that they were willing to give and even more than even what they may have required is what it means. And so the heart of a giver like that is a wonderful thing to see. Now, the next picture here is trying to show Moses talking to the people and saying, look, you have brought enough. I probably said this, if we need any more, we'll let you know. Probably would say something like that. But he was saying, well, we do have enough now, and there's no need to bring any more at this particular time. Now, remember, they are still out in the wilderness. They were in the process of getting ready to leave Mount Sinai. Now, let's read verses 8 through 13. Verses 8 through 13. And all the skillful men among those who were performing the work made the tabernacle with 10 tents of fine twisted linen and blue and purple and scarlet material with cherubim. The work of a skillful workman, Bezalel, made them. The length of each curtain was 28 cubits. And what I have here, if you notice, I converted them. A cubit, if you remember, has been considered 18 inches. It was considered from the elbow to the end of the finger of an average man. And now some, I believe it was 20 or 22 inches. So there must have been some men had long arms. I don't know. But anyway, 18 inches through the years has been the normal considering the length distance that you and I would be accustomed to. Remember, back then, guess what they didn't have? They didn't have feet. They didn't have yards. They didn't have miles. They didn't have any of that. They had their own way of measuring, and that's what this is. And what better way to measure than something you had on you? You had yarn, so they would measure that way. So we see that. Now, and he made loops in verse 11, and he made loops of blue on the edge of the outermost curtain in the first set. He did likewise on the edge of the curtain that was outermost in the second set. So he made rings. The rings were made to be attached to the curtains, to the bottom or the edges, so they could tie ropes through them and hold them down. That's basically what they're making here. He made 50 loops in the one curtain, and he made 50 loops on the edge of the curtain that was in the second. The second set. The loops were opposite each other, and he made 50 clasps of gold and joined the curtains to one another with the clasps, so the tabernacle was a unit. So this is what Bezalel made. So he was doing a lot of work at this time. So we have that. And just remember, 45 feet by 15 feet wide or long. It's 45 feet long, 15 feet wide, and 22.5 feet high. And we'll see a picture of it here a little bit later. The curtains were 42 feet long and 6 feet wide. So it had to be made to cover the whole tabernacle. If you remember the picture we looked at before, the edge of the curtains are basically touching the ground on each side and go up the sides and over. And so it was quite a bit of distance there. And these curtains, the 4 layers of curtains, had to be made. They just wasn't poof, and here they were. They had to be made. And here is a picture I found. I tried to find some things different. Hopefully it'd be a little bit different, but this is showing some men weaving together, and it does talk about the curtains. The inside curtains that would be seen would be more ornate than other layers that were there for the protection from the weather, is what it would be. Okay, 14 to 19. Then he made curtains of goat hair for a tent over the tabernacle. He made 11 curtains in all. The length of each curtain was 30 cubits and 4 cubits. The width of each curtain. The 11 curtains had the same measurement. And he joined 5 curtains by themselves, and the other 6 curtains by themselves. Moreover, he made 50 loops on the edge of the curtain that was outermost in the first set, and he made 50 loops on the edge of the curtain that was an outermost on the second set. And he made 50 clasps of bronze to join the tents together. Now remember, bronze is a harder metal, and it's going to be a point there where friction could be. Instead of having that gold was there in other places, but in this case, the bronze where more abuse would be, it was a stronger material, and I always think that's pretty cool. And he made a covering for the tent of ram skin dyed red, and a covering of porpoise skin above. And here is an example right here. It's basically the curtains that we have. We've seen this before. Here is the outermost one, sea cow, or a porpoise they called it. It was an animal that would have been in the water, and its skin would not absorb water. It would repel it, and it would be there. And then the next of the ram skin dyed red, and then the goat skin here, and then the elaborate, very ornate type of curtain that would be made with the purple and blue and scarlet, so forth right there. That's what this part is talking about at this time. Now here's a little picture I found. Hopefully this will help us. If you'll notice down here at the bottom, here are the loops that would be made, or the clasps. This is where you would take these and stakes in the ground and tie down and hold it in place, is what they would do. Because it would stay there sometimes. We have no idea. It may have stayed there a year or two. Remember, they wandered 40 years. And so that tabernacle went with them all that time. And so just like we're supposed to have some very high winds in the next day or so, they could have high winds there. It was desert area, and they normally have high winds and so forth like that, to where it could be a pretty dangerous thing there. Well, let's read now verses 20 to 30. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this picture up right here. This is a picture of an acacia tree, is what it is. Now, I don't know how. Now, of course, all their trees don't look exactly like this, but they had to have enough to make those boards. And so some of it had to be straight, but anyway, this was the type of wood tree that it would be. Verses 20 to 30. Let's see what it says here. Then he made the boards for the tabernacle of acacia wood standing upright, 10 cubits for the length of each board, and 1.5 cubits wide. I measured them. They're about, was it 15 feet? Anyway, and about a foot and a half, 2 foot. 1.5 cubits, about a little over 2 feet, maybe in 20 inches. Now listen to this. There were 2 tenons for each board. Now that was what little peg, little rectangular or round pegs. If you've ever dealt with some of these toys that they can build with at home without nails or anything, they got these little slots they can put stuff in. Well, it had to be made to be movable. It had to be broken down, carried, the tabernacle and all the material with it had to be carried however far they were going, set back up and put back together. It had to be a way to where it could be something that would be as easy as it could be. And if you notice, there's no nails. It's never mentioned in here about nails or any spikes or anything like that. It's nothing that would tear the wood up or anything. It would be something that would be able to take apart, put back together as they went. And so what we have here is, again, here is the example of the boards right here. And right here is the base of it that it would sit in, and it would sit down. And they were made, now we'll see about how they put bars around here on each side to hold that in place, because the fact is, it's just once you put it up there, you got to have a way to have stability with it. And so we have that now. Let's look. Here's what I want to show you. A cubit, 10 cubits is 15 feet. 1.5 cubits is 2.25 feet, a little over just 24 inches, just a tad past that. So let's go back, and here's that right there. Okay. All righty. And there was 2 tenons for each board, fitted one to another. Thus he did for all the boards of the tabernacle. He made the boards for the tabernacle 20 boards for the south side, and he made 40 sockets. That's what they would sit in. Under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under one board for its 2 tenons, and 2 sockets under another board for its 2 tenons. And then all the second side of the tabernacle on the north side made 20 boards, and they had the same thing there. So they had double basically what they had to have there. And on the rear of the tabernacle, he had 6 boards. And now the front of it, that would be pointed to the east, it didn't have boards like this. It had curtains, if you remember. That's what they had. And he made 2 boards for the corners. The corners were specifically made. They were not just a separate little flat board. They were like this. They made a corner. Is what they did. And they were put together so they would fit in the corners like they were supposed to. And that would help, too, the fact of not mixing things up and so forth like that. So that's what they had there. That was in verse 28. And in verse 29, and they were doubled beneath, and together they were complete to its top, to the first ring. Thus he did with both of them for the 2 corners. And there was 8 boards with the sockets of silver, 16 sockets, 2 under each board. And then we have that. And now the picture here may not show it very well. You may not be able to see it. But right there is the tenon, T-E-N-O-N. There's 2 of them there, 2 little pieces sticking out. And then this whole thing would fit right down in that holder there, and then that would be some of the support. And it's showing here there's a hole there, but that may not have been. It may have been the hole to be on the outside of it instead of that. So we have that right there. And here's what they have mentioning as we can see in Exodus 26 and 36. This is the crossbars They had rings on some of the planks, and it would be of such to where this would offer stability to the sides of the tabernacle, as so wind couldn't be an issue, and when they put the curtains up on them, it would not pull or anything like that. But yet it could be taken down quickly. Whatever quick would be to take the tabernacle down, I don't know. But they were able to do that. And here's a picture showing, now again, starting in 31, we see that he made bars of acacia wood, 5 of the bars of one of the side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards on the other side, and 5 bars for the rear side of the west. And he made the middle bar to pass through in the center of the board from end to end. He had one bar that was real long, and did that. And he overlaid the boards with gold, and made their rings of gold as holders for the bars, and overlaid the bars with gold, is what he did. And so that's what we're trying to show some of here in this case. And that was verses 30. I got a little head on my slides on 31 to 34, was what we just read there. Now, the rest of it is going to be here in verses 35. It says, moreover, he made the veil of blue and purple and scarlet material, and fine twisted linen. He made it with cherubim, that's the winged objects, and the work of a skilled workman. And he made 4 pillars of acacia for it, and overlaid them with gold, with their hooks of gold, and he cast 4 sockets of silver for them. And he made a screen for the doorway, a big curtain in parts there, of blue and scarlet and material, and fine twisted linen, the work of a weaver. And he made it 5 pillars with the hooks, and he overlaid their tops and their bands with gold, but their 5 sockets were of bronze. Let me go back just a moment. Let me go back. Okay, if you'll notice, that last few verses is talking about an area right in here. Back here are boards, there are boards, and there are boards, and there is some right in here, because in here is the most holy, and here's the holy place. But in here is going to be hanging these purple and red and so forth colored, very ornate curtains. So that's what we saw in those last few verses there. And that takes us through. Now again, this is not at times if you take the time to really look at this a lot, it's a lot of repetition from one thing to another. It's not very exciting. But please remember this, that God had given Moses a plan. Moses gave the people the plan. The people then carried the plan out. And that's what we're seeing. It's what we're doing here. And so through certain men that had the skills that God would give them and so forth like that, they were able to accomplish this. And that's what we're seeing. Now, we'll see in chapter 37 next week, to where the construction will continue. We're almost to the end of 40 chapters here, and we're getting to where they're finishing building the tabernacle, and then they're going to have it completely assembled, and then God will come to the tabernacle. And basically that'll be the end of the study of Exodus as we get there. But remember, these people have, even though at times they have fallen, they have not done a very good job of following what God would want them to do, but at other times they do rise to the occasion. And that lets us know that we as humans, that when we have things in our life that may not be what we would like to have, or that we don't know how to do, that with God's help, just like he did for these people here, he helped them to accomplish that goal. And it was a goal for them to be able to have him with them, because he told them that they would be his people. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were all promised that God would be with them and he would make them a great nation. And they're in the process of doing that now. That's all we're going to do for today. We'll get ready to have class. Service. Thank you very much for your attention this morning.